How's the weather in Seattle? Someone said there's like not a hurricane, but some other like
The Sonics.
environmental event.
Okay, if the NBA team comes back to Seattle, I want them to be called the Seattle Supersonic Bomb Cyclones.
That's what it is. It's a bomb cyclone. It's the weather. Is it rain?
um, so let's abstract the name bomb, which would be just like
Yeah.
and then the cyclone. It was similar to that. Like the bomb was the rain came, and then the cyclone just kind of threw everything everywhere.
Is it done over with?
Done, down power lines because people don't take down their trees. Don't, the older trees come falling. Um, Minimal power. I mean, a lot of power outage, but minimal length. Like it wasn't so. We didn't take out any. What are they called? Transistors or the
Yeah.
transfer sites or whatever it is. We're okay. It's kind of like when you guys had that big, atmospheric river
Yeah.
rain. That maybe had a landslide, a few, but nothing too. We're all here. We're all safe. We're all good. The internet worked the entire time. We're all good.
So if you're a cigarette smoker, you can't smoke cigarettes during that time, but you got to be inside.
I
Which
mean, well, if it's your own house, you can make your own. There's no one. The cigarette police aren't going to come by and tell you to put out the cigarette.
you're just rutting on your couch.
Maybe if you want to.
So back in the day when you were reckless and you're a knucklehead, was it like Marble Reds? Was it Marble Lights? Was it Camel?
I
Like
was a
what was
I was a bummer.
your bump? So whatever cigarette
Whatever.
was
Yeah.
available.
Now, if I spotted Camel Crushes like that, all of a sudden we were friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, load up and get your cigarettes ready because we might be lighting up some cigs in Columbus. We got a big game. Coach Signetti and the Hoosiers are trying to do
Ooh.
something special against the Buckeyes. IU versus OSU. Biggest game of the league. Are you going to light up some cigs?
Jeez, you pulled that. I liked how you wove that in. I didn't quite take the bait all the way that it should, but yes, is Indiana true, false,
Hold that thought, Big
real,
Ben. And
whatever we want
welcome
to call it?
to Big Ben and K Win. Each week we broadcast live on nofilter.net, YouTube. Now you can get our video podcast on Spotify too.
Ooh.
More love and audio podcasts. Don't worry. Download, listen, subscribe, and 5-star us. If you watch this live, on demand, or follow us anywhere on social media, make sure you drop your comments below. We read comments and reaction each and every week. Today, we're going to talk a little college football, IU versus Ohio State, a little NBA, and much, much more. I'm K Win, he's Big Ben, and I want to start with what I'm calling margin of victory.
Margin, meaning the difference between different numbers,
Meaning
right?
you win and how much you win by. When you lose, how much you lose by.
Okay.
And we're going to go forward in time. We're going to fast forward to next week. It's Tuesday. Ohio State is just lost.
Oof.
Where are you ranking them?
Okay, so you've lost those. Gosh, if I was who's the buckets guy? You have your brackets, your segments, or your quadrants.
Joey brackets.
Those are 2 quadrant 1 losses, right? Relative, because you lost to Oregon and then you've lost to Indiana. And then you have to kind of, it's all relative, right? So you go look at the other 2 lost SEC schools. I don't think you're in front of a 1-loss team at this point in the season. But certainly you're probably still in the top 10, top 12, maybe somewhere in there. I don't see him losing, so this is all figurative game. But I mean, let's be honest. But yeah, they're probably.
Hey, their starting center's out. Their right tackle has been out. Their O-line is depleted.
Listen,
Signetti might have something up his sleeves.
Signetti, I mean, for the guy is pervasive in the fact that he can win. The guy came out and said, I win. I'm a winner. And he's done it. The guy's done it. He's backed it up. But this is the ultimate test. This is the circle, the game that everyone circled for the remainder of the season as the eye
Yeah.
test for Indiana. And
This
how
is going
good
to
are they?
impact everyone, not only the Big Ten, the SEC, the Mountain West, all these seedings. It's got so much on the line. That's why I'm so excited. So
Listen,
if Ohio State loses, Ohio State just lost. They're still in the playoff because they only lost to Indiana and Penn State. They're 11 or 12 seed. But if Indiana wins and shocks the world, it will be interesting. But you and I both don't think they're going to win. So that's why I'm talking about margin of victory. What does
yeah.
Indiana need to do if they lose?
Well, listen, I would say this: if they get boat raced, like all of a sudden, yeah, you're talking about like Boise State is all of a sudden more viable in the college football playoff and probably get ranked ahead of them. And then if they get boat raced, those two lost SEC teams start to come into the conversation of maybe ranked ahead of Indiana. If they play Ohio State tough, um, ended up losing. Remember that, like you bring up the down center, right, for Ohio State and like all the holes. Remember when the quarterback for Florida State was out, Travis,
Yeah.
and like the narrative was, oh, it's not a bad loss because their starting quarterback was off. Like, anyone can create their own narrative, but if
But
Indiana
it's a
was,
bad team if these people are out. Because Florida
yeah,
State got boat raced by Georgia in the bowl
yeah,
game.
yeah, and so all I'm saying is you bring up the idea that if Ohio State loses, oh, they weren't at full strength, right? What if they were at full strength? Would they have won? So all of a sudden that comes into play, and they probably don't slide as much as Indiana would slide if they lost, right? Because then the narrative is, oh, Ohio State beat Indiana without their top, two centers. So there's a lot that goes into play and kind of the impact of the rankings. Would you agree?
I would agree. I've sliced this every way to Sunday. Indiana is just lost. The following week, they play Purdue. I mean, they're going to finish 11-1. They're still going to be in the playoff hunt. They beat the teams that they should have played and beaten. I don't think Indiana falls out of the playoff. I don't think either one of them falls out of the playoff.
No, you don't. I mean, you don't. 'Cause again, if you do, then you're the Big Ten city. The Big Ten commissioner would. I heard this lately. This on the radio, on sports radio. Is that if the SEC doesn't get the teams that they believe should be into the playoffs, they might take their ball and go home and make their own little playoff.
Yeah,
Like,
you're right.
and you could see that happen between the Big Ten and the SEC. And then, figuratively, you have the rest kind of playing into another playoff. So you have these mini playoffs, and that could happen. And this is the first year we've expanded. So if the playoff committee doesn't get it right, there's rumblings, there's grumblings, there's the whole idea of that. But where I was going with this, the Big Ten is so top heavy.
Yeah.
Like, you better pencil in Indiana, Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon. You better pencil in at least three of those at this
Yeah.
point if you're college football playoff committee.
Like if you look at the SEC this week and look at their schedule, it's like the first week I think where ranked teams aren't playing each other. Like the ranked teams are playing non-ranked teams. That's
Yep.
how it is all year in the Big Ten, except like 2 or 3 weeks.
Right.
Because the SEC is that much more stronger and powerful from top to bottom.
Yeah, you're right. And you look at the two lost teams right now. So let's look at the two lost teams.
There is going to be a 2-loss SEC team and maybe multiple that don't go.
Agreed, because you have right now you have six of them. I mean that's what it is, right? And then you say, let's do this exercise. Say Indiana does lose.
Okay.
Are they ranked ahead of Ole Miss?
Old Miss wins out? No.
Alabama?
Alabama goes on and loses in the conference championship? Yes, because then it's 3 losses
And it's three
to
lost.
1 loss. Yes.
Tennessee.
Oh. Then I think you have to look at strength of schedule, which I don't have in front of me, and like margin of victory against your opponents. I think it's close. Yes, higher than Tennessee.
Georgia?
No.
then there's these like anomalies in a sense. Like we've seen Ole Miss, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia play tough games, right? Throughout this already. They're ranked 7, 9, or Ole Miss 9, 7, 11, Tennessee, Georgia 10, and then you have Texas A&M 2 losses at 15, and then Texas is 1 loss,
Yeah.
right? Like it's
If Texas loses to A&M next week, it's going to be interesting, right? Then more teams have a chance to get in.
listen at this point. I would pencil in like if college football, I would put those teams that we just mentioned or that I just mentioned, those 6 teams from the SEC, along with the 4 teams from the Big Ten, and just say, unless something catastrophic happens where they're out of the tournament,
Yeah.
they're in the tournament.
Here's what needs to happen, SEC fans, because I'm with you. I'm an SEC fan now. We need Army to beat Notre Dame this week, or we need USC to beat Notre Dame next week. Notre Dame's the team that, if they're out, there's 5 SEC teams in. Notre Dame's taking the spot of a 2-loss SEC team. Get them out of here.
All right. So we'll know a little more after next week. I think we revisit this topic.
Yes, and then it's going to change again.
We get the playoff prediction. We get the crystal ball. We get the 8 ball and shake it and say outlook not so good for a particular team. Can I go college football with you real quick?
Let's go.
So I saw an article most recently on the Collective. You've heard of the Collective?
Yeah, it's where it used to be the boosters. Now it's a group of people that collect money for NIL.
Right. My question, because I saw an article, and this is where this spawns from, is I saw an article, Johnny Mateer, who's a quarterback for Washington State now. He sat behind Cam Ward these last 2 years, and now he's done phenomenal. He's taken a 2-loss team, or a Coug team that shouldn't be near a 2-loss team that they are today, but he's willed them to there. Cam Ward, the year previously, he needed money. He wanted money. He deserved money. So where do you go? Miami. He's got deals with Adidas, Yves Saint Laurent. He's got big time deals in Miami because the Collective can bring eyes to that. And there's that metropolitan area where, hey, we sponsor the quarterback for the college football team, right?
Yeah.
Johnny Mateer has NIL deals with Quilceda Casino and Peggy's barbecue truck, Where I'm going with this, and there's a big push from the Cougar Collective to round up enough money to keep the guy around, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't leave. My question to you, could we see, here's where my head goes. Why isn't Harvard, Yale, why isn't Stanford just up in the Collective and buying winning football teams in the future?
Well, I believe those fine institutions do care about sports and do want to win, but they care more about the student.
Right.
And so they want that Ben or that Kyle, they're that person to hit all the requirements, right? Like all the extracurricular activities you had to do in high school, right? You played
Right.
sports, but you had to do this and do that. I think they're more concerned about the academics than the sports.
Well, okay. Here's my rebuttal to that. Why couldn't you just go find the guy, the player that hits all the marks, and make sure he doesn't go to Miami or Bama or whatever? So you field the football team under the criteria that you want to fill, but you do it in a way where you're fielding the best football team, feasible football team, right?
Well, I think there's multiple challenges for these schools that you've mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
One is the facilities, right? Like Clemson's got a slide. Like look at Alabama. Like they've invested in these facilities where these athletes are like, I'm going to go there. Oregon, there's a barbershop. You get to design uniforms. So it's like they've got the facilities, they've got the coach, and they've got the conferences, right? Like if you're a star, are you going to, even if Harvard, whatever Harvard can give you, are you choosing Harvard over Georgia or Texas?
Not today.
Yeah.
Not today. Certainly not today. But what I'm saying is that I think the switch could flip where you see these schools with massive endowments, right? What do they use?
You need the coaches and the staff,
yeah,
right?
I mean, but you can bring coaches with money. Like, let's be honest. And so, and here's where my next thought takes me is a lot of, so you hear about the collective, right? Money comes in, money goes out. It's 1-to-1 usually, right? Why wouldn't you, as an organization or excuse me, a institution like maybe any of these schools, go draw, take a chunk from maybe your endowment, or you get a what do we say, like a capital project, right? Our capital project is to draw NIL
A
money.
grant.
I don't know. You can't get a grant from the federal for NIL money.
Get a grant for a new quarterback?
Ah! Oh my goodness. That sure, that could work too. The requirements of the grant, the respondents for proposal. Where I'm going with this is that I could see a day and age in which there's big capital project, right? And what people don't want to see is their money to go in and go out, and then the product or the product on the field isn't up to the expectation, right? If I paying this money, I want something with someone to produce. So why not go out and get a collective, and then that becomes a sum of money where you only draw on the the return, right? So you have a nest egg, but you only take and shell out from the return on your investment, or effectively whatever. And this comes down to markets and investments and whatever. So all of a sudden, your NIL money is growing. You'll put a better product on the field, and you're preserving that investment rather than depleting it. And then here's where I go with it, and I'll end here. If I invest my money one in, one out, and the product isn't up to snuff, we don't have any more wins, what's the likelihood I invest again?
Yeah. I just think these schools are like a mid-market baseball team like Pittsburgh, where everything is just good with status quo, and they're not going to invest in the top tier talent, the coaches, the facilities, and the program. Could they do it? Yeah. I just don't think they're going to set up their institution for success. Like, look at the Bears, right? Like, do they have the best coach for Caleb? Probably not. Is the ownership really committed to winning? I don't think so. I just think a lot of these people are just happy with status quo. And I think a lot of these universities aren't going to invest in all of these things that are required to be successful.
I agree. But all it takes is one donor, one alumni
Yeah.
to go, listen, deep pockets, let's do this.
Yeah.
You could see a Balmer of the collegiate ranks, right?
Good.
Some guy from Stanford say, I just sold my company. Well, I'm going to go not buy a football team, but I'm going to go create a pretty good football team with all this money and see what happens. I personally would probably do that. That would be something of interest to me if I had a bunch of money and I'm an alumni of Stanford or Cal. I'd go create a football team, see what happens.
Take your NVIDIA stock, sell it, and be the collective of WSU.
I could probably get a solid left guard for the team with that money. But you get where I just see the game evolving. I see, and back to coaches, Dickert, come back to WSU. Dickert came out at one point and said, listen, relative to others around me, I got like a tenth of what Oregon State's doing. I got, a micro percentage of what Oregon's doing. So you're not going to be able to track the coaches, right? The coaches see it, right? Yeah. I need money to bring kids in, especially if my resources aren't as good as others. And if you can't do that, you're not competing.
No, you're not.
Your Pirates don't have their eyes on the World Series every year. They just have their eyes on competing, right?
Exactly.
So that's all I got. I'll do part 3 coming up.
All right.
More ideas. And pretty soon we'll take like Eastern Washington University to the championship.
Yeah. Get Cooper Kupp. He can invest in the program.
There you go.
Yeah.
Call up Coop.
All right. I don't know if we have enough time for NBA.
Yes, let's do it. Because
I don't think we have enough time, but we'll go real quick. We're talking about NVIDIA's stock, buying and selling stock. I want to know if you're buying or selling the stock of these players or teams in the NBA.
Okay, go.
Cleveland Cavaliers. Are you buying or selling?
I'm buying. Here's why. You asked me to take a look at their box scores, and I get it. I think I got what you were putting down there. They're deep.
Yeah.
They all can score. I
Oh
think
yeah.
they got 6 players, 8 players averaging more than 10 or more.
Hmm.
Look at the box score from last night.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell had 10 points. They still won by 30. Like they right. There's no one person carrying the team. Conversely, you look at the 76ers.
Ooh.
I think the big three have played. Paul George went down again last night with the same injury he had previously, and Embiid looks like he can't show up on time. Tyrese Maxey's mad already. They've had 2 wins. Those two teams are polar opposite.
Hmm.
One goes down on the Sixers, game over. The chair's falling over. You look at the Cavs; they're doing it right. I mean, and it's sustainable because they go 10 deep.
Yeah.
I'm buying.
I'm buying too. Kenny Atkinson, coach. He was successful in Brooklyn, and Katie and Kyrie pushed him out, went to the Warriors. Now he's in Cleveland. And that offense is humming. They play fast, they shoot the three. They've got the 1-2 punch of Garland and Mitchell. But it is, Evan Mobley has taken that big step. He's becoming
Mm-hmm.
more of a playmaker. I like what they're doing. I'm buying. They remind me of the 2019 Trailblazers with Dame and CJ, 2 guards that led the way. But they've got better defense. They've got Mobley and Jared Allen. I'm buying.
Yeah. The teams are surprised when you play defense. I
Yeah.
think in the NBA, they're like, what? But you got scrappy guys. And I think what I'll leave it at this on the Cavs. I looked across like some of these, I hadn't heard of them.
I know.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, I hadn't really heard of him too. So I'm like, dude, check this
Yeah.
out.
That's got to be development, right?
Yeah.
That's development and just you get guys that, here's the other part about the big three versus if you're
The
the
Big
other two,
Ten.
Big Ten, sure. But go back to the Sixers. You're sitting there just waiting for one of those 3 players to shoot, or right. Cavs, any one of those guys can score. They're all threats.
Yeah.
And that's different from what we've seen in the NBA over the course of the past decade.
Gotcha. All right. Now I'm going to go to a coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, JJ Redick. Are you buying or selling?
Listen, here's the thing about the Lakers. How many games in the season are we? We're about 15, 16, somewhere in
Yeah.
there. They're going to be okay this first third of the season. It's how are you going to respond when injuries happen? When you're playing
Ooh.
backups, right? That's when you really demonstrate how good of a coach you are or manager you are of the team, right? And he can do himself a favor probably by mitigating minutes, but he's done a good job. Um, to be determined with JJ. Just because
You're holding.
I'm holding. I'm not buying. I'm not selling. I'm holding.
It's early, but so far I'm buying. I like what he's done so far. AD's playing like at an MVP level. He saw something that wasn't working. He made adjustments. The NBA is all about adjustment. D'Angelo
Mm-hmm.
Russell is coming off the bench. Dalton Connect is now starting. He's scoring. He's making the adjustments. And you know what? LeBron is buying in. He's happy. He's smiling. And he's catering to his vets. So far I'm buying. But it is a long season. And we will see. Because they only go as far as AD.
I like what you said about Dalton. Thinking back to the Lakers in the last 3 years or so, when LeBron or AD weren't on, game over.
Yeah.
If you can get Dalton some shots and you can score, and LeBron, I feel like LeBron, if he gets confident, others around him, he might opt into that kind of like distributor, facilitator uh, player, which you should at his age. Because if you go ham every game,
You can't.
you can't.
All right, let's do some social media mentions and we're out of here. I'll go first. SEC. So last week we talked about only 4 SEC teams going to the college football playoffs. Shout out to @Corey Dot. I mean, that's an OG. If that's your handle, you got
Corey
first
Dime?
name and
Ooh.
a dot. There's no numbers. So @Corey Dot on TikTok. Notre Dame has no business going after a weak schedule and losing to NIU. Boise lost to Oregon by 3. They went out. They deserve it. 5 SEC teams should go. Wow.
That's whoever Corey Dunn is a very intelligent individual because I agree with everything he said. And not to say I'm the most intelligent or judge of intelligence. I think it's a very, very, very credible tweet.
Let
Or
me give you one more. I lied.
Cool.
I said I was going to do one. This was about four SEC teams, but Nate wants South Carolina. So he asked us. And so shout out to
Ooh.
Nate at Nate.0785. I think if South Carolina puts the pieces together, they definitely can do it next year. I mean, South Carolina is on a heater. Like, they are one of the SEC teams that could sneak in and win if there is some chaos at the top. But I don't know if South Carolina can make it unless Notre Dame falls or Texas would have to fall. Big Ben, are you there? Or are you frozen? I think you might be frozen, so I'm just going to continue the episode. We also talked about should the Hawks extend Geno. Shout out to at WSG.Austin. He says it depends on the next 3 games. If he can win and play good, I think they extend him. I think he's right. If the Seahawks play well, if they make the playoffs, they might have to extend Geno. And then at Jackson Craft 08. Geno plays good when the O-line gives him more than 3 seconds. They need to draft an offensive line. They need an offensive line. They may need to pay Geno, especially if he wins and gets to the playoffs. I'm K-Win. Big Ben's frozen here. He's up in Seattle. He needs to upgrade his internet, but I'm going to take you out of here. Follow us anywhere online at Big Ben K-Win _ at Big Ben K-Win _. Download, listen, subscribe wherever you get your audio podcast. More of a video podcast. We broadcast live or on demand. NoFilter.net, YouTube, and now Spotify. You can watch our videos. I'm K-Win. He's Big Ben, and we are out of here.